Welcome to episode 3 of the Victory Again podcast from Indy Sports Now. This is Joe Smeltzer, joined by Brandon Walker. And Brandon, Penn State is 4-0. Have a game. It has a game that very much should win this Saturday against Northwestern. So before we talk about Northwestern, let's just briefly go over the Central Michigan game. I know we're recording this on a Tuesday night. So whatever's going to be said about the Central Michigan game has probably already been said. But let's just talk about that. And Brandon, what did you see from Penn State's win against Central Michigan this past Saturday?
Not much. It seemed like they did I don't want to say the bare minimum to win, but it is what it is. They knew they could beat them, basically blindfolded, which they basically did. But give Central Michigan credit. I know people don't want to get embarrassed. Like, they're athletes too. They have pride. They're on scholarship. No matter, they might be 1-star, 2-star, some 3, but they're athletes too. They have pride. Everybody's talking about the point spread all week and everything like that. So give them credit. And like, you still got a good coach in Coach McElwain. He coached at Florida not too long ago. So it wasn't surprising that they wasn't going to cover the point spread, because it was a little come down from Auburn. They might have been feeling their oats a little bit, and they thought, all right, we score a couple times, so they're going to lay down. But they give Central Michigan credit. They did not do that and battled till the end of the game.
No, they didn't. And the score probably should have been even closer when you consider that Central Michigan had 2 touchdown plays on separate drives wiped out for penalties and didn't end up scoring on either of those drives. So if those touchdowns stand, if Barney and Moore isn't insane punting the ball, if Penn State's defense doesn't force 3 turnovers, who knows? You're looking at a much closer game. But yeah, enough about Central Michigan. We'll talk about Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald is very respected. He's done an incredible job. I think he's been there for about a decade and a half for a reason. But man, ever since making that Big Ten title game in 2020, things have not been good in Evanston. So from what you know about Northwestern, Brandon, what have you seen from the Wildcats thus far?
They should be on 4. They should not have a win right now, but Nebraska blew it. That was a result. The coach got fired, so that is what it is. But yeah, they just don't look too good right now. It's just, I understand, like, Northwestern is not going to get these. It's a high level academic school. You're not going to get high end recruit. You're not going to get high end talent to go there. So you got to coach it. And sometimes you got the jocks, sometimes you don't. Right now, they don't have the jocks to get.
No, and there are a few good players on this team, to be sure. Evan Hall is a very good runner, also does a lot of receiving for Northwestern. James Franklin was talking about Evan Hall a little bit in his press conference. Hall's a very dynamic player. He has 370 yards on 85 carries and 3 touchdowns, good for 4.4 yards per carry. So Hall's a player to watch, I think. Penn State has been facing some pretty good running backs in recent weeks, and Hall will present another challenge for Penn State. But yeah, for skill position players, Northwestern really doesn't have much. And the best player on Northwestern's team, I think, is probably playing on the offensive line. And this is a guy that's going to give Penn State's defensive front, which has played very well in its first 4 games. This is Northwestern left tackle Peter Skornowski. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But anyway, this guy's 6'4", 315 pounds. First team All Big Ten, voted by the coaches last year, preseason AP All-American this year. This is a big boy, and this is a guy that's going to challenge Adisa Isaac, Chop Robinson, I think, in the rest of that Penn State front.
Yeah, he'll make a challenge to him, but the problem is he's only one person. Penn State has a plethora of depth around the defensive line, which I talked about last week on the podcast and in my column. So I think you can work around that. Just tire out, rotate. That'll be the key to the game. I almost think Central Michigan might be better than Northwestern.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask about that because, yeah, it's fair to wonder, right? Because Northwestern just lost to a MAC team at home in Miami, Ohio. And the week before, it lost to Southern Illinois. And going back before that, its first loss of the season was at home against Duke, which, I mean, granted, Duke is a Power 5 program. Duke's not on Penn State's level. So, yeah, you think about Central Michigan. I know it's 1-3 this year, but last year, Central Michigan won 9 games and won its bowl game. So I think it's very fair to wonder if Northwestern is better than Central Michigan, because I don't know if it is.
Let's be honest. We really want to talk about Michigan and stuff like that, but wait, we gotta wait to this game. But what I'm guessing what you want me to do is see what you're looking for. I want to see Nick Singleton bounce back and get 100 yards. I guess now the cat's out of the bag about this kid, and Central Michigan was like, we're going to stuff the box whenever he's on the field. But now you got we're just going to get into it. Now you got the other kid, Katron Allen. Now he's getting shine now. So do you think that that's the best backfield in the country? I mean, where would you rank him in the best backfield right now? Tandem, running back.
I think if there were a top 25 rankings for backfield, it would definitely be in that. I definitely think it's the best freshman rankers, really, any debate there. But I'm not real sure where I'd rank it among backfield tandems overall. I think it's going to be pretty darn high by the end of the season. But we were talking about, Brandon, before the Central Michigan game, about what Katron Allen's future in Penn State's program would be, not necessarily this year, but going forward when Drew Allar becomes the starting quarterback next season, which we all think he will be. And if he is a beast, which we all think he will be, Penn State's going to have to throw the football. And Nick Singleton has already made his statements this year against Auburn and Ohio. He's going to have to get the football. So, there isn't as much room to run the football, and then that room becomes even more thin when there's already a star running back in Nick Singleton. So where would that leave Katron Allen? Well, I think that Katron Allen has shown himself to be too talented to leave out entirely. I think that this is going to be a tandem for Penn State, and I know you're going to be passing a lot with Allar. I know there's only so many plays in the game, but this kid is averaging more than 6 yards per carry, and I think he's just too good in the future of Penn State's program to not be splitting carries with Nick Singleton. And it's kind of a problem because you're not going to be, obviously, the more you run the ball with one guy, the less you do it with another guy, right? But it's a great problem to have for Penn State, and it's already kind of showing this season when these guys are really only 4 games into their college careers.
The problem is if one of them gets hurt. That's my issue. Where's their depth going to be next year or the year after that? That's something that was going to happen to recruiting. So that's the more of the thing with me with the Penn State running back situation. And
but you have London Montgomery coming in.
Yeah, but he's hurt.
But he got hurt. He might be healthy next year though. He got hurt back in August. So I mean, I don't know the timetable for that. It's definitely going to be a long recovery process, but I don't know if you can assume that he'd be out in the fold for 2023 yet, because I mean that would be a year from when he hurt his knee. So,
right, but they're going to work him along slowly, and you can do that with these two in the backfield. So that's a good problem to have, but they'll figure it out recruiting when we start talking about recruiting, but we're not doing that right now. But
so Brandon, through 4 games, how would you evaluate Sean Clifford's play this season? I think he has been very good overall, but Central Michigan, I think, was probably his worst game of the year. So where do you think the Penn
Yeah,
State starting quarterback situation is going into week 5?
well, he's clearly the starter, but he started 8 for 8, but he started airmailing them. I'm like, I don't know what the exact stats were, but I think it was around 50% and maybe a little bit less than that after he started 8 for 8. So it's that type of that game. Like, I know he had the great moment against Purdue. He came in, but is that going to cut? That's not going to cut against Ohio State or in Michigan, even Minnesota coming up. He's going to have to up his game. And I'm like, I know I said that he's good enough to win. I'm like, I'm looking at Allar. And I'm like, I know he has the arm talent, and if he works and uses the horses that Penn State got at Tinsley, Evans, Parker Washington, who's he might be a first round pick right now. I'm thinking, he would look so good. I know he's a freshman. You have to deal with some freshman mistakes, but that arm talent, man, could make a difference with these 2 running backs during the month. I know. So how do you feel about if Allar has to go play at Michigan and then Ohio State? If something happens with Clifford, do you think he's ready for the moment?
I don't want to say he isn't, but I don't want to say he is either. It's so hard for a true freshman, regardless of what their talent is and what the hype is, to go in the Michigan Stadium when you haven't started a game against like even Ohio for that matter. Just going in that environment as a true freshman, Auer handled it very well at Purdue, better than I think anybody expected him to, but I wouldn't wish for Drew Auer to have to play against Michigan or Ohio State or even Minnesota in the whiteout as a Penn State fan. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, I know it's a controversial subject, and I might, you know what? That's a good idea. That's a good column I might write for tomorrow, just for that thought. Thank you for that. And I just figured out because I didn't have really a column to write because it was Central Michigan, and I had to figure out something I wanted to do. It's a weird week, but I think I found something juicy I could sink my teeth in.
All right, good stuff.
But what was the all right? Since were you at the press conference today, or you watched it live?
I was in it via Zoom. I didn't go in person, but
Okay.
I was able to. Yeah, so I heard everything.
Okay, so what did you see? Like, I haven't watched it. I'll probably watch it back when we leave here. What did you feel about what Franklin thinks about Michigan? Michigan. I'm sorry, Northwestern, and how the team is going to approach this game better than what they did against Central Michigan.
He was talking about Northwestern. He kind of just gave like the old cliches. Going to be a tough game. James usually gets all of his talking about the opponent, or most of his talking about the opponent anyway, done in his opening statement. He'll mention the coordinators. He talked about Pat Fitzgerald, obviously. Mentioned some players that have impressed him and the coaching staff, but that's usually the extent of what. Talking about the press conference, the past few weeks, James has been a lot more loose, and I want to say happier in his press conferences. He's joking with reporters. Not that James likes to joke around in general, but it seems like he's been doing it a lot more the past few weeks. I don't know if that's just me or if Penn State, the more Penn State wins, the better mood he's in, and and I guess the more pleasant press conferences are. But yeah, and one big thing from James's press conferences is Mark Wogenrich from Sports Illustrated asked him what's become a recurring theme in that James and the coaching staff want to get Drew Auer into the game for a series in the second quarter. They wanted it to happen against Ohio. The game didn't play out where it would have been appropriate to use him then. Central Michigan kind of the same way. And then obviously Auburn and Purdue, they didn't really plan on using him at all. But because Clifford had to go out briefly against Purdue, and because Penn State beat Auburn a lot worse than anybody expected it to, Auer got to play in both of those games as well. So that's going to be a big storyline, I think, to watch. Is, this might be the last realistic chance Penn State has to use Drew Auer in the first half, barring something happening to Sean Clifford, because we know about the free game gauntlet that they'll have after the bye week, starting at Michigan, then Minnesota at home whiteout game, and then Ohio State again at Beaver Stadium. And then looking at the rest of the schedule, Penn State has Maryland at home. Plays at Indiana, plays at Rutgers, and then ends with the land grant against Michigan State. And not that I think Penn State should win all four of those games, but I don't know if I could confidently say that they'll beat any of those teams to the point where Drew Auer gets to show up in the first half or any other point in the game. So that's a big thing to watch this week.
I think it's important because I just feel like in one of these, during this gauntlet that they're having, they're going to need him. It's a strange feeling, gut feeling. It's like, you know what? For whatever reason, they're going to need him to step up at some point. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but
things happen. That game, the game against Rutgers last year, Drew Auer wasn't here yet, but Sean Clifford was sick as a dog and played sick as a dog in the first half, ended up having to leave the game. Christian Veilleux, who was previously kind of an unknown aside from people that follow recruiting, he steps up, plays very well. Penn State ends up beating Rutgers 28-0. So, it could be anything. It doesn't have to be an Iowa-esque injury for Sean Clifford. It could be the flu. It could be, he had to leave the Purdue game with cramps for a series, an hour had to come in and hold down the fort. A lot of things could happen. And, when people think about Sean Clifford going out, they think of, like I mentioned, an Iowa-type injury where he has to leave the game for multiple quarters. But it could be something a lot simpler than that, a lot more brief than that, but still something that kind of forces Drew Auer into action, like what happened against Purdue in week 1.
Right. So you don't think if he's, unless he like stinks it up, he's not going into any of those games after those next 3 games after Northwestern. You think he'll stick with?
I don't see James putting Sean Clifford on the bench unless it's a blowout one way or the other, or if something happens to him. I'll put it that way. It's just Trace McSorley. That didn't happen to Trace McSorley. I think it happened to Christian Hackenberg. It's just, especially with a 6-year quarterback, it's just not something that James Franklin does. And I can't. Yeah, I don't see Sean Clifford going out because of poor play unless Penn State's down 38-7 or something like that. I don't think Drew Auer would replace a healthy Sean Clifford in a close game.
Okay, you'd think that, but still something to ponder, though.
Oh yeah, for sure. And
in the column. But I just wanted to just say that I just wanted to know. Yeah, I just wanted to just see how you felt about that, because I was thinking about that the past couple of days, because trying to figure out something. I'm like, I see this boy come rolling in here with that with them 3 on the field. It's a juicy situation, juicy high-end talent. I love. I already think these two could compete, could get through this gauntlet just because of these 2 backs right here, and that's a difference. I think college football is still about running the football and having a great back. It ain't at the NFL. It's getting there, but it's still not like a quarterback-driven college football or Big Ten. So
this is the Victory Again podcast, episode 3. I think I'm Indy Sports Announcer and Brandon Walker with you. So Brandon, this is kind of similar to Central Michigan in that we expect Penn State to beat Northwestern and beat Northwestern pretty bad. I think the fact that Penn State struggled a bit against Central Michigan is not good for Northwestern, because Penn State now knows, because it didn't happen against Ohio. Penn State took care of Ohio, won by 36. Penn State, if it didn't know it before, it now knows that screwing around, like, well, I don't want to say screwing around because I don't want to like downplay any effort that the team had Saturday, but letting a team hang around, and opponent hang around in Beaver Stadium is pretty dangerous. And this was a 7-point game at halftime. Penn State doesn't want that to happen again. I think Penn State definitely knows the bye weeks ahead and wants to go into the bye week, the rest week, happy and able to celebrate. So I think it'll take care of Northwestern. But aside from the final score, Brandon, you talked about wanting Nick Singleton to get back going. What are some other things you're looking to see against Northwestern?
What other things I want to see? I want to see if Sean Clifford can, if he can maintain consistency throughout 4 quarters over whatever time he's going to be in the game. Because last week he started struggling airmailing passes, and I don't know I don't know. You were there. I was at this nice little brewery that covered the game since it was on the Big Ten Network, and I'll have the package. But I watched it. I was like, I was wondering what was going on, how was people in the stadium feeling about Sean Clifford, starting to struggle for that little while. So you were in the stadium. How was the stadium like when it was close and at the half and everything like that?
The fans started chanting, "We want Drew." So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. It's sort of like I don't like sort of like what, like the Kenny chants at Acrisure.
But I thought that was a little ridiculous because Clifford, he wasn't great, but I don't think he was bad enough for fans to be chanting for the backup quarterback to come in. Mitch Trubisky is a bit of a different story. We can have a whole nother discussion about that. But the vibe in Beaver Stadium was pretty negative in that second quarter when Central Michigan went through a stretch, scored 14 unanswered points, and then Penn State, if not for Barney and Moore's great punting, probably goes into the half tied at 14. But
right.
Everything got together in the second half. Penn State shut out Central Michigan, ended up winning by a somewhat comfortable 33-14 score. But yeah, the fans, a lot of people want Drew Howard to be the starting quarterback. Yeah, and that's just the way it's going to be. So.
Another thing. One thing we do need to see. I don't know what the kicking situation is. I don't know what they have as a backup kicker, but the pronounce his name, Pittaker or Pittenger,
yeah.
Well, whatever it is, he needs to start making kicks. You can't be missing like 30-yard kicks out wherever this was. It was a short field goal. And then having your field goals blocked, it's not going to work because you're going to need points. Like, I know we keep rolling back to this gauntlet, undermining Northwestern, but come on, you lost to Southern Illinois FCS team, so at home, so you don't get that respect.
Yeah.
During this gauntlet, you're going to need a field goal. You're going to get every point counts. Every possession counts. And we're and our stuff on Armor is killing right now. Good job on that.
Yep.
But the kicking game, the field goal game, the field goal kicking game, not the punting game, not the special team, not the return game, the kicking game, the field goal kicking game is vitally important. We need to either have him step up, be more consistent, or Mr. Franklin needs to see who. I know they have some. I don't know who the other kicker is. They have somebody else. They need to try him out.
Yeah, Sander Shadak is Penn State's other kicker. He's the long-range specialist, if you will. Attempted, I think, a 54-yarder against Central Michigan that was no good. But I agree. Jake Pinniger has to be better or more consistent at least. I don't know if it's something about Beaver Stadium. He made every extra point against Purdue. Was 7 for 7 combined in field goals and extra points against Auburn. He was great against Auburn, including making a 48-yarder. But the two home games, man, Ohio missed an extra point, hit the crossbar, and also missed a 42-yard field goal. And then he had a bad miss against Central Michigan, 34-yarder, I think it was, and also had a extra point blocked. So we'll just got to see. It probably won't matter against Northwestern, but come Michigan, it's going to matter. And then one thing I'm looking at on the offense is I want Penn State to have a 100-yard receiver. Mitch Tinsley came close against Purdue, 7 catches, 84 yards. But whether it's Tinsley, Parker Washington, or even the dark horse Keontre Lambert-Smith, I think a receiver going over 100 would be just kind of a nice icing on the cake of what we assume will be a pretty big win against Auburn. So those are some things I'm looking for. But Brandon, as we wrap this up, what's your final score prediction for Penn State Auburn? I'll go for Auburn, Penn State Northwestern, excuse me. I think Penn State breaks 50 for the first time this season. I'll go Penn State 51, Northwestern 20.
I ain't going. I don't like going that high. I'll give you. I say they'll drop a 40 burger on it. I say 41 to 24. Like Northwestern backdoor covers, something like that. It'll be like 41 to 10, and then Northwestern will mess around and score 2 garbage time touchdowns.
Right. Fair enough. We'll see what happens. But this has been episode 3 of the Victory Again podcast. Thanks for tuning in. For Brandon Walker, this is Joe Smeltzer from Nittany Sports Now. Check out our content on the site. Follow us on Twitter at NSN, or at NittanySN. Follow my personal account at Joe Smeltzer775 and Brandon's account, B Walker the Don. Do I have that right?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been another Victory Again podcast, and we'll have to see what happens when Penn State takes on Northwestern Saturday at 3:30. Thanks for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week.